Hello everyone and welcome back to Seashell. This is Coralie D here. So today's video I'm going to be giving you guys my top 6 tips for cold water swimming. So let's dive straight into it. So there's always a potential of risk with anything that we do, but I think there's a little bit more when it comes to cold water swimming. So here are some things to think about before you head out. Tip number 1 is be safe. Do your research before heading out to the spot that you've chosen. You might even find groups of people have already done it before, so we'll be able to give you a few tips before you then go out. Although we can't always do this, especially when we're going up high into the mountains and swimming in very remote locations, if you can, try to pick spots that are easily accessible and, more importantly, easier to get into the water and to get back out of. Try if you can to not go alone. Yes, there's something really fun and enticing about going out swimming solo, but never underestimate how dangerous it can be swimming on your own. Even if people are not in the water with you, at least have somebody on the side that's there watching you just in case. If you can, always wear or use a bright tow float. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I don't need to use a tow float, I'm a strong swimmer. It's not necessarily about using it as an aid. Sometimes you get tow floats that don't really give you much buoyancy at all, some others do, but it's more to be seen, especially if you're going to be in a loch where there's other boats, for example. If they cannot see you in the water, it's really, really dangerous. If you're also swimming in a group of people, it means that if those tow floats are there, when you look up in the water, you're more likely to see them. It's amazing how camouflaged you will become once you're in the water. It becomes very, very difficult to see other people. Always make sure that you bring plenty of warm clothes to wear. The amount of people that I've seen turn up to do some of these swims and they're not well prepared, it means that it becomes very difficult afterwards to get warm. You'd be better having more clothes than too little, just so that you can pile them all on. So make sure that you have at least trousers, fluffy socks, a jacket, a toweling robe for example, a warm fleece, maybe an under t-shirt, a hat, gloves, cozy shoes and a flask to get you nice and warm. Ultimately, there's loads and loads that we can talk about being safe, but those for me are some of the key points. Number 2, know your limits. It's easy to watch other people head out into the water and think, I'll do the same thing, I'll strip off and in I go, I'll be fine. But even in the summertime, it doesn't take long before your body starts to cool down. So be aware of where your limits are. Especially if it's your first time heading out to the water, it can be quite easy to try and push it because other people are. I would definitely recommend not doing that, starting off bit by bit by bit, erring on the side of caution. You can always add more on the next time. But like I said, it's amazing how quick your body will start to shut down if you get too cold, which can be very dangerous. At the end of the day, there is no rush. You want to build a positive and enjoyable experience with going into cold water, especially when you're going to be swimming. So just start bit by bit and build up. Number 3, have the right kit for what you're going to be doing. Now, it's totally individual what you want to wear when you're going out swimming. Some will wear wetsuits all year round, some will wear skins, which is just swimming costumes all year round. At the end of the day, it's not a one size fits all in this. You decide whatever you feel most comfortable with. It might be that you spend most of the summer wearing a costume and then the rest of the winter you decide to wear a wetsuit. So I'm going to go through a list of some things that you might want to take with you, but you might not. So let's go through them. So to begin with, you're looking at wearing a swimming costume, whether that's trunks, a bikini, or an actual costume. You can then get shorty wetsuits that are kind of like a swimming costume with longer arms which have neoprene. You could then have a wetsuit on top of that. Then you can get neoprene boots that go on your feet. You also get neoprene gloves for your hands. You also get a neoprene cap, which is also known as a skull cap, to go on your head to keep the heat on. I would then recommend wearing a silicone cap on top of that with your goggles. Then you would take your tow float with you so that you can be seen with any extra bits in there that you want to be safe. For example, whistle, you could take your phone if you really wanted, and you can take your car keys, whatever you feel comfortable with taking. One thing that I would note is that if you're going to be wearing a wetsuit is to try and get one that works for you. I have done a blog about what is the best wetsuit to wear. I will probably also do a video on this too. Now, if you're going to be doing lots and lots of swimming, I would recommend getting a swimming specific wetsuit. But if you're aiming to try and not go in for that long but just stay as warm as possible and do a little bit of swimming, then a surfing wetsuit would be fine. Please note that this is not essential for going open water swimming, but a lot of these things really help make it a little bit more enjoyable, especially if the water's really cold. I will put a link to the blog where I actually put some links into some of the kit that I recommend and that I use personally myself. Number 4 is acclimatize. Our bodies are incredible. However, we often do need a little bit of time to acclimatize to the environments that we put ourselves in. Like I said before, if you're new to cold water swimming, it's better to start little by little and build to doing more. There are no hero awards for trying to stay in it for as long as you can, so please be careful and do not push it. Now, acclimatization can be done over a long period of time. For example, you could acclimatize over the winter so that your body gets used to you being in the cold water. But there's also acclimatizing on the day of you going swimming. For example, if you're heading down to the beach or you decide that you're going to go up to a loch that's a little bit colder, you're going to try and acclimatize on that day of the swim. Now, although the temptation is there to just run and jump in, which some people do, it's probably a lot safer for you to gradually go in. Now, if you're in a barrel, for example, like I have in my garden, the idea is that you work on your breathing before you get in, you slowly lower yourself down, control, control, control. Taking your kit off and running straight into a loch can be very, very whoa to the body. It's a big, big shock. So although it can be harder, I would suggest always focusing on that breath as you take your kit off, slowly walking towards the water, continuing with that breathing all the way until your feet are in, then your knees, then your hips. You keep on breathing. You've got to focus on that breath. That's what gives you the control until you're all the way in, and then you can go for it. For me, that is the safest way to do it, and that is a way of acclimatizing yourself into what you're doing. Now, what you can also do if you're wearing a wetsuit, and I know it sounds awful, before you get in and swim, is put a little bit of water into your wetsuit. Ideally the water that you're going to be swimming in, and the thin layer of water that goes around the wetsuit actually creates a thin layer of insulation. So if you can try and push yourselves to do that before you actually go into the water, you're probably going to be a little bit warmer. Number 5 is breathing. Now, we've already touched on the breathing on the last point, but we're going to go over it a little bit more here. So there's a tendency when we go into cold waters to hold our breath. Okay. Now, when we're doing exercise, or even just going for a walk, or even me sitting here, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out constantly. It keeps us alive. So we got to make sure that we are doing that breathing when we get into cold water, focusing on this, our breath, so that everything else can then just settle. I would suggest taking big breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Now, you can have a look at some people online, for example Wim Hof, who does a lot of different breathing exercises. There's loads out there. I would also suggest trying to work on doing some Kundalini yoga, or just yoga in general. You're focusing on trying to get that breath working. Now, if you're then going to be going out swimming and you find that even though you've started to do a few strokes, it's overwhelmingly cold, I would strongly suggest continuing focusing on this breath over anything else. Don't even think about what your arms are doing. Don't think about your head position or what your feet or your legs are doing when you're trying to kick. Concentrate on this breath. Almost be aggressive with it. Make noise, make lots of bubbles. Get the inhale, get the exhale out underneath the water. You want that to become autonomous before you then start thinking about everything else whilst you're in that cold water. If you find that you're panicking in the water, I would advise stopping, going in your back, getting that breathing in whilst you can, and then when you're ready, you go again. So basically, if in doubt, breathe. Number 6 is warming up from the inside out and what to do with your kit. So we're going to have a little look at that just now. So once you've left the cold water, you get out. Quite often you're going to get this feeling of blood rushing to the body. You almost feel like you're warm. And it's a very, very strange feeling because you've just been really cold. Now, do not be fooled by this. A common phenomenon with cold water swimming is what we call the afterdrop. This is when you leave the water, you start feeling fine. You actually start feeling warm, but then your body starts taking over, you start shivering and you become very ill and unwell. Obviously, I'm not saying this to scare you, but more to make you aware of this because it could happen to absolutely anybody. So here are some things that we can do to try and avoid this happening altogether. Biggest tip is try and warm up from the inside out. Now, when I used to go swimming every day at the beach in Aberdeen, I'd quite often run back to my flat and jump straight into the shower, and although I was a bit warmer from running back, I tended to find that my fingernails and my toenails got really sore. And it was because I was still really cold from the swim and I jumped straight in to the hot shower. So going from one extreme to the other meant that the blood rushing to my body couldn't quite cope with how quick it was happening. So I would suggest trying to warm up in a kind of slower way. So yes, if you can do some running or even do some squats, some jumping lunges, moving about, but making sure that you've got all of your wet kit off. So you're trying to warm up from the inside out, but with all the wet kit off. So as soon as you leave the water, ideally what you're going to do is take your swimming cap off, take all of the things on your head off, pop a warm beanie on your head. It's amazing how much heat will leave your body, so pop the beanie on. You're then going to put on one of these toweling robes, something that's going to dry you whilst you're getting changed. You're going to take your arms underneath here. You're going to get all of your swimwear off, all of that wet kit off, whether that's your wetsuit, swimming costume, bikini, whatever you're wearing, you're going to get that off. So now you have no wet kit on you whatsoever. You're going to get nice and dry using a toweling robe like this, nice and dry. You're going to keep this on. You're then going to pop a changing robe on. If you can then put some trousers on, some cozy socks, get your feet nice and dry with some shoes on, put some other clothes underneath, whether that's a long sleeve top, a fleece and some gloves, and then you're going to start drinking out of your flask whilst you're moving around doing your squats or your lunges, for example. So once you've got all of your clothes on, you're then going to pop all of the wet stuff in a bag, pop it in your dry bag, for example. And then another great tip is if you have a hot water bottle, take that with you. Now in our changing robes, in our big changing robes here, we actually have a pocket on the side that you can put your hot water bottle into. This one right here. So this one fits my hot water bottle in perfectly. It's just your normal average size hot water bottle, and you wrap that around you. So having a hot water bottle is another great idea to help you warm up slowly. The next thing is then trying to get some food into you. So if there are any food vans where you are, then fantastic. If not, then be organised and take some with you, whether that's nuts or cakes or whatever you prefer. Make sure to have some food and some hot drink to go along with that. Then what to do is get into your car or somebody else's car, crank the heater up and warm all the way up. Now you might find for the rest of the day that you're quite tired because you've expended a lot of energy, or you might find that you're buzzing. It totally depends. Every single person is different when they've been out in the cold water. I'm going to sneak in one last tip. I know that I've done 6 already, but the last one is have fun. Although there are lots of things to think about when it comes to being safe, especially when doing cold water swimming, ideally you want to be heading out there and having fun regardless. What it does to you physically and mentally is unbelievable, and it's hard to put into words really. So make sure to take your friends and family and get them out exploring with you in nature's playground. And don't forget to breathe and have fun. Thank you so much for watching this YouTube video. If you could give us a thumbs up, comment below, tag us on your Instagram posts, come and say hello at our next meetup. We will see you in the future, whenever that is. Hope you have a great day. Catch you later. Bye now.